human person. The longing for meaning, the longing for belonging, the sense of needing to be at one with others, with God, with the creation itself. And I think that kind of emphasis in Gulen's work touches those deep chords within many of us, and inspires us and encourages us to begin to cross boundaries and barriers, and not to fear differences. I mean, I think I come from a part of the world where differences terrify people, and we become violent about it. But it's finding peaceful ways to deal with our conflicts, and peaceful ways to deal with our disagreements, and peaceful ways to deal with, not just deal with, but to embrace our differences and our diversity. And I think Gulen, with his philosophy and his outlook, has a tremendous, and is making a tremendous contribution along those lines.
How do you see the Gulen Movement's contributions to the humankind in general?
Well, as you know, those of us who are not of the Muslim faith are very puzzled by the Muslim faith. And we're puzzled about the amount of violence that is attributed to Muslims. And the importance of a Fethullah Gülen and those who are devoted to his understanding of Islam is that it's so radically, profoundly holy as an understanding of God and faith, that it's an antidote to all of the biases that those of us who have been generally ignorant of Islam harbor. So the man's importance for the contemporary world is unlimited, since he has taken his faith to a depth that abhors negativity, that abhors sectarianism, that abhors division, that abhors violence, and done it from within the text of his own faith, and done it from within the depth of his own prayer. So that's why he's important. He's a radically important person. Not a person that will be covered by by the media. But it's a shame, because he's the most important media individual that I know in the whole world right now with respect to our relationship to Islam.
So this is alluding to your presentation. You said he speaks to my meaning needs, and I actually myself resort to him as a meaning maker. So where does he sit in the matrix of meaning?
Well, I mean, as I said in my presentation, I think that all of us are meaning hungry, and that we have this sentinel on the parapet of our consciousness that's on the lookout for someone who can make faith meaningful. Now, for me, Jesus makes my faith meaningful. Jesus is the symbolic operator in my mind and heart that bring me to understand the mystery of God. But interestingly enough, when I read Gülen, he seems to speak to the mystery of God in the same depth and with the same meaningfulness that I find in my own faith, in my own prayer, and in my own scriptures. That's why I don't have the competence to judge whether his text, his sacred text, and his sacred symbolic operator, the prophet, are of God. What I do have the competence to judge is whether or not the meanings that he has attained because of those realities that are sacred to him speak to the same understanding of God that I have. That's what's remarkable about him, for me.
In your presentation, you stated that education is the best service to humanity. Is this an opinion you gathered from the Gulen Movement, or is this more of a universal principle you would like to allude to?
That's a very good question, because I've been a teacher for 1/2 century. And I have great hope with education, but the education that exists today has sort of only been a half education. We've been absorbed with the learning of things, but not the true education where people communicate. And I think that that's one of the most important contributions of Fethullah Gülen, is that in the nexus between human beings, we harmonize, we attune, we interact, and we collaborate. And as a result of that, it's more than just learning, the learning of the names of the states of the United States, but in fact, we become different people, and through dialogue. And that's what's so key to Gulen's definition of education, is dialogue and tolerance.
How do you see the Gulen's movement's contributions to the humankind and to the world peace in general?
I think the Gulen movement has affected millions of people around the world. He has anywhere from 2 to 5 million people in Turkey alone that are inspired by his thoughts. We have over 500 universities and schools built under his inspiration and guidance. And I think, once you get people thinking for themselves, you never know where that's going to lead. So his students are his strongest allies and supporters. And he sees the youth as the future of any country, and if that's the case, I think the future of Turkey and of the world looks very hopeful.
The movement is a movement that draws on the Sufi tradition of Islam, but does not stay there. It turns that into a very activist, committed movement that seeks to create change in the world. So it's dynamic and it's pragmatic. So he manages to bring together a tradition of mysticism with a commitment to rationality. And that's a bit of a trick. But he manages to pull that off, and his admiration and emphasis on education is I think, the most practical result of what he does. But it does not diminish the other. So in a sense, there's something for everybody. Some of us has a mystical inclination, some of us have a very pragmatic inclination, and the Gulen movement encapsulates both.
Many Americans believe that Muslims are ignorant, violent, and how can we correct this impression?
It will be very difficult because Americans see what is in the papers and on their TVs. They do not see Muslims in America who are generally more educated on the average than Americans. The majority of Muslims in America are middle class or upper middle class, but they're in the professional programs and the hard sciences, so they do not have a public visibility. In time, the children who are born here, the second and third generation Muslims who are here and go through American universities, and especially those who enter professions that are not the hard sciences or engineering, but are in the humanities, in journalism, in politics, in the legal sciences, those will be